Today I am building the most uncompromising PC I've ever showcased on this channel. No, it's technically not the most powerful, kinda far from it, but it is the PC with by far the most brand new and parts with warranty I've ever put together, plus it's my first ever DDR5 build. Apart from my personal PC. The base of this whole machine is a B760M AX motherboard from Gigabyte, on which I am installing a P3 1TB drive, both being brand new. I got a nice free upgrade from Amazon because they ran out of the cheaper motherboard I ordered, and they upgraded me to this feature-rich AX model that comes with Wi-Fi, 12V and 5V ARGB and BIOS flashback. About the only thing that this motherboard does not have is a new style Type-C internal connector, but that is easily solved with an adapter. Speaking of that little adapter, after paying £8 for it on Amazon, I felt like I was taken for a ride, and when I checked a direct from China retailer, it turned out it was £1.56, and that is including shipping and taxes. And speaking of ridiculously expensive things, I've already pre-installed on the motherboard a ridiculously expensive i5 10-core 13400 CPU. The reason it is so expensive is because I bought it from my local CX. Yes, I know, I could have gone for a 12600K for the same 190 British pounds, but I couldn't help myself. This 400 class CPU simply seems like the best bang for the buck you can get, especially if you find it for a more reasonable 140 to 160 pounds. But hey, at least it comes with 2 years warranty, so that's a plus. The jury is still out if AMD or Intel have the best approach. Intel with smaller E-cores that are not feature complete compared to the P-cores and run at a way lower frequency, or AMD with their little cores being just that, a space optimized normal core that just can't match the big core's frequency. But apart from that, it is identical. I'm not going to mention Vcache here because this video might turn into a rant and nobody wants that. Moving on, the RAM I am using also comes from CX. 4 sticks of 8GB DDR5 4800 Mbps that are very happily running at 5000 Mbps. Must say I really like the boost function from Gigabyte. A proper OC it is not, but it gives you a bit extra by essentially flipping a switch in BIOS. It doesn't rely on RAM profiles and it just works fine with mixed kits. Everything will go into a very nice Corsair 4000D white case that I must say I like very much. I've pre-dressed it with 3 Be Quiet fans, 2 large ones at the front and 1 small one at the exhaust, but realistically all of them are positioned to take advantage of the RGB more than the airflow. It doesn't really matter, there's still plenty of airflow. And plus a 650 watt Corsair PSU and a 2TB hard drive. For the cooler I will be using an EK-AIO that is complete and utter overkill for the CPU. This will easily tame a 12900K with its 2 massive fans and powerful pump. Well, powerful for an AIO that is. I would very much enthusiastically recommend this if it wasn't for the £130 RRP. Honestly, this would have been a killer buy around 90 to 100. Regardless, after a minute or two of faffing with it, it was in with about a millimeter clearance left. The cooler will have to come out to access the RAM, which is a bit unusual, but it's not a problem. And here I can brag a bit that this is probably one of the most quiet high-end builds I've ever put together, and fans make a massive impact. Using high quality fans is the most important thing definitely, but also using larger diameter fans is also something we need to take into consideration. I've opted to go for 4 larger 140mm fans for this build and 1 ramped down 120mm fan for the exhaust, and it's so quiet the thing that annoys me most is the PSU fan ramping up and down, believe it or not. And finally the GPU goes in. A white Zotac 3070 that looks absolutely amazing in this build. Considering I ended up choosing a white case specifically to fit this GPU, it's unsurprising. As far as this particular SKU is concerned, I'm happy to say that it does a very good job of keeping cool and quiet with 2 fans. And to simply drive home how quiet this build is, I have decided to take the very unusual step of recording all the audio with this PC instead of shutting it down and using a fanless Surface 7 tablet for the task. And here we have some pictures of the complete build, one of the best looking yet in my view. So, for today there won't be that much commentary on the benchmarks, primarily because I have done 3070 PCs before on this channel, but also the focus will be mostly on the 13th Gen i5. As customary, we start off from heaven, and here it doesn't really matter if your CPU is a baked potato, as it's designed to put off all the stress on the GPU. Long story short, this GPU scores an extremely high 285 FPS on average, which is normal for this card. I have decided to test everything at 1080p this time round. I know it's a waste for this PC when it should be ideally running 1440p or above, but being focused on CPU performance in games that traditionally are very CPU heavy, this made a lot of sense. I forgot to record the 3D Mark pass using my external capture card, so here is a screenshot of the result. The really impressive thing is that it passed all the tests with 99.8% stability. On my purposeful crappy SATA based boot media that I simply port from PC to PC, that was very impressive. The usual score here is in the high 98%, so I can conclude that those E-cores are probably doing something in the background. Rocket League is the first esports title we'll be looking at today, and I went into this fully expecting amazing results, and I got them. The game simply loves Intel CPUs, and it shows with the average FPS being over 500. In Fortnite, with everything turned up on this racing map, the FPS hovers around 90 with very good frame pacing. On normal map you'll probably get a bit more, but I'm really happy with the result, and I quite enjoyed this Trackmania inspired minigame that obviously uses Rocket League cars. Going to proper AAA titles, first up is Horizon Zero Dawn. I did leave Nvidia DLSS on again to push the CPU as far as it would go, and I wasn't disappointed. While there was a bit of CPU bottlenecking going on with the CPU being the limiting factor, I did stack the deck against it and it still came up on top with 155 FPS. I'm still a bit in two minds whether or not this is worth it over a 5600X, but I can't argue that those results look amazing. Sticking with CPU heavy games, but this time without being silly and turning off upscaling, we have Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Yes, I know Mirage is out, I can't find the time to buy it and enjoy it first. Here the tables have turned with the traditional CPU bottleneck being completely gone. I know this car can do a bit better than 118 FPS on average, but only by a couple of frames up or down. It's also worth noting the previous versions of this game can't be directly compared because the optimization simply wasn't there. Farcry is traditionally the worst of the worst, and for that I did turn off upscaling, again knowing it would probably be CPU limited no matter what. And I was right, the GPU is only drawing 180 watts on average, a far cry from its limit, showing it is spending a bit of time spinning its wheels. But with 102 FPS on average, that is again a slightly better result than the equivalent AM4 Ryzen. I know it sounds like I am complaining, but I really am not. This is one of my favorite Intel CPUs I tested so far. At 95 watts, it's not a furnace, so it's easy enough to cool with a decent AIO, and it provides incredible game performance. In PUBG, I've got no idea what I'm doing, so this is the training intro at ultra quality. Is it representative? Probably not, but I didn't have the time to progress and thought I included it anyways. Still, over 250 FPS on average at 1080p is nothing to sniff at. Control with everything set to maximum, RT features are the most important bit here, and DLSS on returns a very GPU bound 128 FPS on average while looking gorgeous. Although I never played the first Alan Wake, which is set in the same universe as this game, I decided to play Alan Wake 2 just because I love the world of Control so much. I'm still not overly enthused with the second game, but my plan is to finish it and then add it to the GPU benchmark. Oh yeah, and for anyone undecided, just play Control, it's amazing. Taking it a little easy with Diablo 4, where I took out the DLSS just to be a bit of a challenge, we got 170 FPS on average in the swamp. Naturally this can be further boosted using DLSS, but only on higher resolutions. This is a very easy game to run on its lowest settings on almost any hardware, but becomes deceivingly difficult once you go to Ultra. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is old at this point, but it still looks amazing. Even better, the GPU is stacked 100% throughout most of the benchmark, with the exception being the valley scene where there is a lot of CPU simulation. Still, 174 FPS on average isn't anything to sniff at in a gorgeous exploration game. And finally Cyberpunk, using the Ultra Ray Tracing preset and DLSS set to auto, we get an astonishing 76.85 FPS. Then I remember that this is a 1080p not 1440p and calm down a bit. Still a really good result that does a lot of credit to the hardware. I will still push the resolution up to 1440p and live with a 60 FPS on average because it makes sense for me in this game. One last thought if you made it this far. Is this CPU worth 50 to 70 pounds more than a 5600X? No, not really. If all you want to do is game, running this 10-core CPU with DDR5 makes no appreciable difference. You are much better off going DDR4 and a previous gen Intel or AMD and bumping up the GPU. That being said, it's a very future-looking build, and if you are using it for other tasks apart from gaming such as content creation, well, then the extra expense is absolutely worth it. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it and see you in the next one.